I was standing in the entrance of this upscale restaurant, scanning the crowd for a client, when my eyes locked onto someone I hadn't expected to see: my ex-wife, Emily. She was sitting at a cozy little corner table, laughing and practically draped over a guy who looked like he might have been a gym rat a decade ago but had since traded his abs for cash. Everything about him screamed money: expensive watch, slick haircut, even the way the waiter hovered around him. Watching them, it was like getting hit by a truck. 3 years divorced, and still, seeing her with someone else hit me in the gut like it was yesterday. She looked happy, like the kind of happy I hadn't seen in years. Meanwhile, I stood there like an idiot, a ghost from her past life she'd already replaced. It all really started with a business trip up to Albany. I had a meeting planned with a new client, but about an hour in, the guy called and said he'd been in a fender bender. He was fine, but the meeting was off. I told him not to worry, even though I was irritated. I could have stayed overnight, but instead I figured I'd head home and surprise Emily with dinner. I hadn't seen her in a couple days. I thought she'd be happy. When I pulled onto our street, I saw 3 unfamiliar cars in the driveway. Emily had friends over all the time, so I didn't think much of it. Parked on the street and walked in like normal. But inside, things were off. Clothes were scattered all over the living room. That alone was weird, but then I heard sounds from upstairs. Not voices. Moaning. At first, I froze. But then my stomach turned as the realization crept in. I knew those sounds. They weren't innocent. I went upstairs, heart pounding. The door to our bedroom was cracked open, and I looked inside. What I saw still haunts me. 3 guys. One of them was her boss, Mark Bennett. The other 2 I didn't know. They were doing things to her that made me sick. She wasn't resisting, she was enjoying it. Her own boss was whispering compliments in her ear while doing the unthinkable. They were degrading her, and she was lapping it up like it was a reward. I backed away before anyone noticed me. My hands were shaking as I walked down to my office and grabbed my old camcorder. I knew I'd regret not documenting what I saw. I recorded just long enough to get the picture, no pun intended. Some guys might have gotten turned on by that. Not me. It made me feel hollow. Like everything I thought I knew about my wife and my marriage was a lie. I headed back downstairs, grabbed the gun from my safe, not because I planned to use it, but because the rage boiling inside me was making it hard to think straight. I found their wallets and car keys in their pants and took them. Then I walked outside and quietly let the air out of all 4 tires on every car in the driveway, including Emily's. Her phone was upstairs. I'd seen it on the nightstand. I crouched behind the stairs, called her from my cell, and waited. She picked up after a few rings, panting a little. "Hey, David. How's Albany? You sound out of breath. Everything okay?" I asked, trying not to scream. "Oh, just ran up the stairs to grab my phone." "All good," she said, faking it. "My meeting got canceled. I'll be home soon. Want to grab dinner?" There was a long pause. Sure. Sounds great. See you soon," she said, her voice shaky. I hung up and waited. Just like I thought, I watched as 4 half-naked people bolted down the stairs. They scrambled, grabbing clothes and yelling over each other. Emily threw on some pants and ran to the porch, trying to help them leave. She didn't notice my car across the street. When she stepped outside, I slammed the door behind her and locked it. She turned around and saw me through the window. The look on her face said it all: guilt, fear, shock. The men banged on the door, demanding their stuff. That's when I called 911 and told them there were strange men trying to break into my house. Turns out, a neighbor had already called. Cops showed up in 2 minutes flat. Emily had to tell them what happened. She tried to lie at first, but when they asked her directly, she admitted it had all been consensual. The cops couldn't arrest anyone, but I told them she wasn't staying in the house that night. They called a cab. The guys tried to accuse me of stealing their things. I denied it all. She stood outside on the porch, trying to explain, but I wasn't having it. "You shattered everything we had. Don't ever speak to me again unless it's through my lawyer or Tad," I said, referring to our mutual friend. I shut the door and left her outside. Watching her push away Mark when he tried to comfort her gave me a sick sort of satisfaction. But it didn't last. I went back upstairs and the smell of lemon cleaner hit me like a slap. I ripped the mattress off the bed, dragged it outside, and threw it on the lawn. Then I dismantled the entire bed frame and tossed that out too. I checked her phone. It was full of messages, pictures, and videos. Stuff I never wanted to see. Her friends, other men, some I recognized, some I didn't. I dumped all her belongings on the front lawn. Then I found a stash of DVDs hidden in the guest room. At first, I didn't know what they were, But once I played them, it was clear. Emily and her friend Jessica at some party, doing things I could never have imagined. One DVD showed her with her tennis coach. She used to come home from those lessons too tired to be with me. Now I knew why. The worst one was her in the office with Mark and his boss, Jack Miller, a guy known in town as a model citizen. I felt sick. I gathered everything, the tapes, her phone, the DVDs, and stuffed them in a big envelope. I was going to give it all to my lawyer and to my friend Chris. He's one of the only people I trust. Then I went through her laptop, backed everything up onto an external drive. Photos, emails, videos. It took an hour. Buried deep in a folder were messages between her, Mark, and Jessica. One message destroyed me. Jessica had asked, "Why not just leave David? What's your dream guy?" Emily replied, "David's loyal, but he's clueless. He's getting fat, and I can't stand his beard anymore. I used to love him, but being with other guys is more fun. I'm lining up promotions and perks. If I play this right, I'll have a car, a house, and alimony by the end of the year." That's when I knew. This woman I gave 10 years of my life to never really loved me. I thought about using the gun, but she wasn't worth it. I had more living to do. The next morning, I was still sitting in the living room, just staring at her last message, trying to wrap my head around how much she'd changed. The one that broke me was short but cut deep. Emily had written, "My dream man? Rich, loyal, dumb, and obedient. Bedroom stuff? Who cares as long as he's got money? I get that somewhere else. Gotta go, David's home. See you Tuesday." That wasn't just betrayal. That was mockery. I must have read it 10 times before the pain finally just collapsed me onto the couch. I passed out from sheer emotional exhaustion. By morning, I was wrecked. I called in sick to work and reached out to my longtime friend and attorney, Chris Hayes. His secretary, Linda, whom I'd known just as long, picked up. I told her it was urgent. She said Chris was tied up in court but that she'd relay the message. A few minutes later, she called me back. "If he starts rambling, just say the name Laura White," she said, like it was a secret code. "He'll make time." Sure enough, I had an appointment in 1 hour. While I was getting dressed, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I answered it, half thinking it might be Emily using a different line. "Mr. Lewis," the voice said, calm and formal. "This is Jack Miller from Emily's office. I'd like to discuss the incident at your home last night." That name made my stomach turn. Jack was Emily's boss's boss, and also one of the men in that final, gut-wrenching video. I could hear the panic hiding behind his polite tone. He didn't care about Emily. He just wanted to protect the company and his precious image. Probably worried sick I'd expose what he, Mark Bennett, and the rest had been up to. "I've got a meeting this morning," I told him, "but I'll reach out before noon." I wasn't going to give him the upper hand. I stepped outside and immediately noticed the mess, our broken bed and Emily's clothes still scattered on the front lawn like some weird garage sale. My neighbor, an older woman who always watered her plants like it was a religion, waved awkwardly. She'd definitely seen it all. I was now the main character in the neighborhood drama. After grabbing a quick breakfast, I made my way to Chris's downtown office. Linda handed me a coffee, just how I like it, lots of cream, no sugar. She gave me a smirk. "I don't know what you've got on Chris, but he canceled everything for you today. Also, Laura White? I need to hear that story one day." A few minutes later, Chris walked in. "Laura White? Man, you must be in deep," he said, motioning me into his office. "Linda, hold all my calls." Once we were alone, I laid it all out. Everything. What I saw, what I recorded, and all the twisted emails and videos I'd found. I handed him the big envelope full of evidence. He listened without interrupting. That's how I knew I could trust him. He wasn't going to stop me to react or make it about him. "So, David," he finally said, "I have to ask. Any part of you want to try and fix this? Save the marriage?" "Chris," I said, dead serious, "if this were Anna, your wife, and you saw even half of what I saw, would you stay?" He didn't answer. Just nodded. "All right," he said. "We're going nuclear." We hit Emily's workplace hard. We have clear evidence that her superiors, Bennett and Miller, were abusing their power. You've got leverage. We went over a plan. I told him Jack Miller wanted to meet. Chris grinned. "Good. When he sees what we've got, he'll either offer a settlement or go down swinging. And if it's less than $2 million, he can forget it." I laughed. "Make it 2.5. You've seen my legal bills." As we wrapped up the strategy, Linda poked her head in. "Chris, Emily's on line 1. Chris groaned. "Did I not say no calls?" I figured you'd want to take this one. Chris told her to patch it through but warned her not to mention I was there. He picked up. Emily. Yes, I've spoken to David. Yes, I'm representing him. And no, I don't want your excuses. I could only hear his side, but I knew she was panicking. You invited strangers into your marital home, he told her, cold. You shattered a man who loved you. And yes, he had a gun, but for self-defense, not revenge. It's in the police report. Be glad this didn't end worse. He told her to get a lawyer. Said she wasn't welcome at our meeting with Jack. If she tried to show up, things would escalate. She needed to stay away. Live with Jessica. Handle her own mess. He made it clear she was about to see a side of him she wouldn't like. When he hung up, he looked at me. You catch all that? Yeah, I nodded. I want to see her. Say something. But I know I shouldn't. I'm not ready. Chris handed me a new task. Give me the tapes. I'll screen them before the meeting at 2 o'clock. Don't watch them again. It'll just break you down more. I handed them over, relieved. Linda and I grabbed lunch while he reviewed everything. She cracked jokes the whole time, trying to lighten my mood. She was good company. When we got back, Chris was grinning and doing this stupid little dance in his office. David, these tapes? Game. Changer. He must have seen my face, because I wasn't smiling. Sorry, he said. I forgot how hard this must be for you. He motioned me over. You need to see something. I walked behind his desk and looked at the screen. It was the tape from the tennis club. Did you watch all of it? He asked. No. Just bits. It was already too much. Chris hit play. Brace yourself. The footage showed Emily finishing with Mike in the locker room. But then it got worse. A group of men came in. They'd apparently been watching. And without hesitation, they joined in. The man who stepped forward first had gray hair and a thick mustache. Chris froze the frame. Recognize him? I nodded slowly. Yeah, that's Councilman Harris. That's right, Chris said. And now we've got him too. At 4 o'clock, we had a meeting at the tennis club. I could already feel the storm building. And for the first time in days, I wasn't scared. I was ready. Miller's office was just one floor down from where we'd come in. Chris and I sat in the waiting area until his assistant finally waved us in. As I stood to walk in, I caught something out of the corner of my eye, someone peeking around the hallway, then ducking back quickly. I didn't need a second look. I knew it was her. Part of me was relieved. I wasn't ready to face Emily today. Not in that building. Not like this. Miller's office was every bit what you'd expect from a man with too much money and too little shame. Leather chairs, gold frames, photos of him with mayors and CEOs, the whole 9 yards. I wondered if that desk had seen more than just business. Good morning, Mr. Miller, I said. This is Chris Hayes, my legal counsel and a longtime friend. He'll be part of this meeting. His eyes narrowed. David, I was under the impression this would be a one-on-one discussion. Well, I said, not blinking, whatever you need to say to me, you can say with Chris in the room too. He looked annoyed but didn't push it. Classic power player pretending to be calm. He kept addressing me directly, trying to ignore Chris. Big mistake. David, he began, I want to apologize for what happened. Mark and your wife, that situation was unfortunate. I think, with some cooperation, we can find a resolution that satisfies everyone. I let him talk. I wasn't in a hurry. I could feel Chris quietly savoring the moment. You know, I said, this probably involves Mark Bennett more than you're letting on. Why not call him in? Miller hesitated but hit the intercom. Julie, get Mark up here. Now. Drop whatever he's doing. A few minutes later, in walks Mark, nervous, sheepish. He looked like he wanted to bolt, but Miller waved him to sit. David, Jack said, Mark and I both care about your wife. She's been a valued part of our team. Chris leaned forward. Care about her? That sounds a little too paternal. Are you implying you think of her like a daughter, Mr. Miller? Because if that's true, what you've been doing with her is a hell of a lot worse. I let out a quiet laugh. Chris didn't pull punches. What's this about? Miller snapped. Chris pulled out a portable DVD player and laid down some printed screenshots right on the table. Why don't you take a look? Mark glanced, then passed them to Miller. His face went pale as he realized exactly what was staring back at him, images of him and Jack with Emily in their own office boardroom. You filmed this? Jack asked, clearly shaken. Chris didn't answer. He just pressed play. There was no denying it. Jack and Mark had both crossed every line you can cross. I watched their faces as they watched themselves. Jack looked like he'd seen a ghost. Mark was already looking away. He knew what was on there. Here's how this goes, Chris said calmly. Emily stays. She keeps her job. David thinks she'll need it, and she fits the office well enough. He pointed at Mark. You, on the other hand, you're out. Immediately. And next, Chris continued, you're going to come up with a financial offer that doesn't insult our intelligence. We'll give you 5 business days to put something real on the table. If you lowball us, we're filing suit within 60 days. The room was dead silent except for the sound of the video still rolling in the background. Finally, Jack found his voice. Mark, we need to talk about your future here. Immediately. Then he turned to us. I'll talk to my legal team. We'll come up with a settlement that might meet your expectations. You better, Chris said. And Jack, just a heads up, if you try to bury this, Mark might have copies of the tape too. We wouldn't want things getting complicated. Chris made it clear. They both had plenty to lose. Jack's political connections, his company, Mark's reputation, they were all on the line. We got up and left. I noticed Emily lurking by the hallway again, clearly trying to overhear everything. She ducked back, but Chris had already clocked her. Let them implode, Chris said once we were outside. Never let 2 guilty men stand united. It's better to divide and watch them tear each other apart. I like that plan. We headed out to grab a beer before our 4 o'clock meeting at the tennis club. Chris needed to brief me. I needed something cold and bitter. We found a small bar right by the courts. Chris ordered us a couple of drafts and leaned in. I know Jack, he said. He'll come back with something around 1 million. But I'm not biting. I'll push for 3. If he resists, I'll tell him we're done. He paused. I also need to ask, if this goes to court, are you ready to let me go all in? I'll have to paint Emily in the worst possible light. You might not like everything I bring out, but it'll win. I sipped my beer, thinking, Chris, I didn't ask for this war, but I'm damn sure going to finish it. If it means dragging every filthy truth into the daylight, so be it. He nodded. All right. Then we start with Nash. Frank Nash owned the tennis club. He was the silver-haired guy from the video, the one who stepped in after Mike. Frank's gonna act like he doesn't care, Chris warned. Like this was just 2 adults having fun. But you've got something that'll make him care. We finished our beers and walked next door. Frank greeted us with that smug country club grin. Chris introduced me. Mr. Nash, this is David Lewis. His wife is a member of your club. Your tennis instructor, Mike Johnson, had an affair with her. We'd like to know what you're going to do about it. Frank smirked. What grown-ups do in their own time ain't my concern. If your wife's straying, maybe it's because she's not satisfied at home. Happens more than you think around here. I clenched my fist, ready to break his damn nose. Chris grabbed my arm and whispered, let me. Frank, Chris said, calm as ever, you're assuming this happened off the clock. Let me show you something. He pulled out the same DVD player. Press play. Frank's face drained of color. Your instructor didn't just hook up with a member. He did it in your locker room. With witnesses. With video. Chris leaned in. You took money from David. Let his wife run wild at your club. Now everyone's going to find out. Every husband who pays those dues? They'll wonder if their wives are getting personal attention too. Chris made it clear. We'd take legal action. Subpoenas. Media coverage. Privacy violation suits. The works. And this was just the beginning. I stood there, silent, watching the panic set into Frank's face. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was getting my power back. What we want is simple, Chris told Frank Nash. A serious financial offer and fast. That'll save you a hell of a lot of money and even more trouble. I watched Frank lean back in his chair, jaw tight. He knew he was cornered. You're a damn piece of work, pays, Frank finally muttered. But your logic holds. I'll call you tomorrow with a number. If I agree, I want all copies of those tapes, and everything stays quiet. Mike's fired, immediately. And that's all you legal pirates want, he added. Chris grinned, shut off the DVD player, and stood up. That's it for now. Oh, and tell Victor Ramirez I said hello. Frank glared at him. Go to hell, Hayes. Chris laughed all the way to the car. That went about as well as I could have hoped, he said. Now we wait. And wait we did, but not for long. By the end of that same week, Jack Miller came back with an offer of just under $2.7 million. Not bad. Mark Bennett, who handed over all his tapes thinking it'd save him, got tossed out like garbage the next day. No job, no support, just a boot from the company he thought had his back. Then there were the 2 clients of Mark's who'd been tangled up with Emily. Both were terrified this would reach their companies or the media. Each quietly offered me $1 million to keep my mouth shut. I took the deals. Justice, in its own way. Frank Nash? He played tough, refused to offer a dime. So we sued him. He lost $3 million. His precious tennis club emptied out. Members fled, sponsors bailed, and eventually he lost the place altogether. Guess the locker room footage didn't sit well with the judge. In the divorce, I gave Emily the house and a car, what she wanted. She didn't get a penny in child support. I saw her twice in court. Both times, I called her a strumpet to her face. She cried. Strange how she didn't cry before, when she was ruining everything we built. Chris's advice paid off big. I ended up with more money than I ever thought I'd see in my life. Still, the pain lingered. The betrayal never left me. Some wounds you carry around like old luggage. Heavy, ugly, personal. I was deep in those thoughts again when a restaurant manager tapped my shoulder. Sir? Everything okay? He asked. Snapped me right out of it. Yeah, I said, shaking my head like I was coming out of a dream. Sorry, just caught up in some old memories. I looked around and realized where I was. That table in the corner. My ex-wife, Emily, was sitting there, smiling, all cozy next to a guy who looked like he used to be in shape but let it slide over the years. Everything about him screamed money. She didn't notice me at first. Last time she saw me, I had a beard, long hair, and a limp from an old baseball injury. That was my excuse back then, why I stopped trying. Truth is, I got too comfortable. Too soft. But not now. I looked better. Felt stronger. Wore nicer suits. Knees fixed, hair short, and the weight's gone. Paid for it all with settlement money, poetic. Really. I walked up to her table. You're looking good today, strumpet, I said, casually. She blinked. My name is Emily, David. Why can't you just call me that? Because I didn't give you that nickname, I replied. Mark did. And honestly, it fits. Her boyfriend, well-dressed and polished, started to stand up. She quickly motioned for him to sit. She was crying now. Makeup smudged. Eyes red. I didn't expect that. Maybe some guilt finally caught up with her. Go fix your face, Em, the man said. I'll deal with this jerk. Emily walked off, tears streaking down her cheeks. That's when I saw the ring. Big one. Real expensive. Guess they were engaged. You must be Dave Lewis, the man said, looking down his nose at me. Emily's ex-husband? That's me, I said. And you're the dream guy she used to write about? I'm her CFO, he said smugly. And I suggest you choose your next words carefully. I just have a few questions. Then I'll be gone for good. He crossed his arms but stayed quiet. Does Jessica still hold her Avon parties on Tuesdays and Thursdays? I asked. No. Mondays and Wednesdays. Emily helps her with decor stuff. Why? I nodded. She still play tennis on Saturdays? Sundays, he said, grinning like he'd caught me in a lie. Okay, I said. One last thing. Have you ever looked under the bottom drawer in your living room dresser? What? He said, confused. No, why would I? That's why we're not together anymore, I told him. I still have the old emails, the videos, the letter, everything from the divorce. I brought this just for you. I pulled a folded note from my wallet. This is what one of the other women wrote to Jessica about how to get rid of me before I found out the truth. He hesitated, then took the note. I've carried that letter for 3 years. Not out of hate, but because it reminded me who I never wanted to be again. That letter changed me, motivated me. He read it slowly, carefully. When he was done, he grabbed a pen, scribbled something on the paper, and stood up without saying a word. He walked out, didn't look back, didn't thank me. I leaned over to read what he wrote. I'll be back soon. Please wait here. I need to check under the bottom drawer of the living room dresser. Adam. I left the letter right where he put it, on her table. As I walked out, I called my client. They were running late anyway, so rescheduling wasn't a big deal. Before heading out for the night, I turned back once. Emily had just returned. She saw the note. Her face went pale. Then the tears came. The last time I saw her, the whole restaurant was staring as she cried harder than I'd ever seen her cry before. I felt a small bit of pity, but mostly, I just felt done. That was the final chapter between us. I still wonder what Adam found under that drawer. From the look on Emily's face, I think he found more than enough.